introduce a new course, and this course is actually one of my projects I have to do for a client, a really important client, and it's going to be a lion head onlay. This lion head, I actually have to do 2 copies of it. So I have to do actually the size of it, the panel in itself. I mean, there's the 2 panels I have to fill with this lion, and the panel itself is going to be about 47 inches and 3/8 and long, and about 17.5 wide. It's the panel itself. But what I want to do in this design, so the client asked me to do the realistic looking lion and incorporate in some kind of Baroque mixed with some Rococo style. So he really likes that, and so I had to actually design for him that that style, okay, just mixed together. But anyway, the approach I took, it's a more professional approach, I would say. So I did not, since I have to do 2 of them, and that's going to be 2 copies, but going to be right and left. That's the only difference. Is going to be the ornament going to be from right side and the left side. So, and I didn't want to take a chance. I took approach which I think it's actually a lot more professional approach. What I actually decided to do, I decided to make a clay model. It's actually not the real clay. What I used, so that is actually the full size, and you can see it's actually quite realistic looking one. So I decided to make a clay model, okay, and what I used, not clay but plastilina, okay. So what is plastilina? It's actually soft clay. It's never hardens. It's wax mixed with some earth materials, with some real clay, and it's always soft, so you can just redo whatever you want to redo, and also if you wish, you could actually reuse it on the later projects. I really like it, and I think it is a lot more professional approach to wood carving, especially the full 3-dimensional world wood carving. And in this case, it's going to be more or less realistic face of the lion. The same technique actually applies to human face, okay. So that's probably the most professional sculptors, doesn't matter, stone sculptors or wood carving sculptors. So the most professional ones, they do exactly the same approach. They would use model first, so model in clay or plastilina. It's how I used. Some of them actually then cast that in a gypsum or plaster, if you wish, and then they look at it and they carve from it, okay, from this model. Now I'm gonna take in this case approach of 18th century, and I'm gonna use so-called pointing machine, okay, so to make exact copy what I have in a clay, okay. And let me show you that pointing machine. It is actually a quite simple device. It's called pointing machine, and later on you'll see how I'm gonna use it. But it has a needle and adjustable arms, and what I'm gonna do, I will take measurements from the main clay model, take that reference point, and actually just use that machine to carve exactly the measurements what is on the main model, okay. So I hope it makes sense. I know it's just kind of bubbling for me, but anyway, I know it doesn't make sense for you right now if you never used that machine, but believe me, this machine, the pointing machine, the name of it. It's an invention of 18th century, like mid 18th century. There's a still debate who was the first who used that type of pointing machine. Okay, some of the sculptors, they saying it was invented in France, and some of the sculptors saying it was invented in Italy. Okay, but you can find some Italian sculptors use that machine, and you can find some French sculptors use that machine. It's quite simple, but it helps a lot to make multiple copies of the same model. That's actually how they used that in 18th century a lot. 18th century, 19th century, beginning of 20th century, you know, sculptors used that machine. I mean, this device. There's nothing machine about it, but it's called the pointing machine. Okay. But anyway, that is quite useful tool. If you gotta go online and we'll try to find one, especially let's say if you live in USA, you're probably not gonna find too many results, because in the 20th century it's almost disappeared. Okay, so people stopped using it in 20th century, but some sculptors still use it, but mostly right now stone sculptors, marble sculptors are using it. Okay, some woodcarvers also, but maybe, you know, just a few in the world who is actually still using it. But it's quite helpful. You'll find out it's actually like a duplicarver almost. Okay, so it's easy to reference points. So anyway, to make that story short, I really love this machine, and that's what I'm gonna use to reproduce what I already done in my clay model. If you will decide to work alone with me, so you will need actually some wood. Okay, that's going to be a lot of wood involved. Especially I'm using, I am doing 2 lion heads onlays, and I'm using a lot of wood. Some of the 8/4, which is about 2 inches, and some of the 16/4, which is about 4 inches. So definitely I had to prepare this wood, I had to plane it down, I had to you know, make it absolutely square, glue it together, and apply it. But what I've done for myself, and also for those of you who wish to follow me, and there's going to be a file available online, you can download. It's quite a big file, but still it's in PDF format, so you can just go to you know, any printing shop. I understand not many of you own big plotters like 48 inches or 36 inches wide, and that's what I used actually, 36 inches by 48 inches page. So I went actually to the FedEx. You can go to UPS, and you can find those in multiple countries pretty much. And usually they provide that service, printing service. It's not cheap, so I paid for my set, but I had to print like 8 pages. I paid like $76, I believe, just to print that. Maybe you can find some printing shops much cheaper, but it's worth it. Okay, what I've done, I printed that, I applied that, I glued that, and I used a photo mount glue to glue that picture actually right on top of the wood, and then, you know, flip that, you know, I glued 2 copies of it actually pretty much, and then I glued the 2nd layer, you know, and then a 3rd layer of wood. Okay, and I am actually ready to start.